Okay, so this is the Crystal Palace dating circa 1850 to 51 in the realist style of British culture, located in London, England, with Joseph Paxton and Owen Jones as designers. And among these details about the building, the date, circa 1850 to 51, is perhaps the best to explain the context for the interior design. This massive structure, being 1,848 feet long and 456 feet wide, with almost 800,000 square feet of floor space on the ground floor alone, took less than a year to design, construct, and open to the public. On March 15, 1850, the commissioners for the so-called Great Exhibition invited submissions for the design of a building to hold a months-long event that celebrated industrial and artistic achievements from around the world. The building had to be temporary, simple, economical to build, and most of all, capable of rapid construction because the exhibition was already scheduled to open on May 1st, 1851, at that time a little over a year away. A few weeks later, the committee received hundreds of submissions, but they were not satisfied with any of them. One member of the committee, Sir Henry Cole, encouraged a gardener and greenhouse designer named Joseph Paxton to submit a design, and in June 1850, Paxton followed through, with the committee accepting his design at the beginning of July 1850, a little less than 10 months until the date to open the exhibition. What made Paxton's design work for the commissioners was a combination of industrial materials and modular forms that could be cheaply and quickly made through the repetition of industrial processes. The whole building, as originally designed, was a series of repeating patterns with cast iron structure and cast plate glass filling the spaces between the structures. And because the industrialized iron and glass could be poured into standardized molds, the building process was accelerated both in terms of production, with construction elements manufactured at multiple sites using the same specifications, and in terms of construction, with the modular forms assembled at multiple areas of the exhibition grounds simultaneously. In fact, the only problem of note when implementing this system was the selected site, Hyde Park in London. The Crystal Palace was to be constructed on a section of the park that included a majestic old elm tree. Thus, Paxton altered his original design, which was to be nothing but rectilinear modules. Instead, he adapted a huge barrel vault to roof the short north-south transept that bisected the main east-west axis of the building, and thus the tree remained intact under the vaulted roof, reminding those who entered the Crystal Palace that its architect was also a greenhouse designer. Furthermore, because greenhouses are designed precisely as spaces to regulate environmental conditions for the successful growth of plant species, the Crystal Palace design speaks to a larger issue of industrial modernism, an issue that we will see again in this course, namely the belief that technology can regulate the interior environment to the extent that the same building can be constructed anywhere in the world. To that end, when the commissioners organized the interior exhibitions of global human productivity within the modular framework of the Crystal Palace, they were precisely claiming that the whole world could be united under a British vision of industrial design. Now, it's one thing to talk about the Crystal Palace design through drawings, plans, and old photographs that show the exhibition space empty of objects and people. It's another thing to show the same spaces in full-color images from the time of the open exhibition. Here again, in the left-hand drawing, we see the barrel-vaulted transept with the giant elm tree growing in the south end, and in the right-hand drawing, we see the flat roof design for the rest of the exhibition space. And I call special attention to these drawings because they highlight Owen Jones's contribution to the Crystal Palace design. Based on the plans, the old photographs, and our own experiences with industrial iron architecture of the 20th century, we would expect the structural interior to be a monochromatic metal frame against which the endless parade of global knickknacks and doodads were set. Instead, Jones used the primary colors red, blue, and yellow to paint the different iron structural elements, or even different facets of the same iron elements as needed. This was part of a larger impulse in the Victorian era called constructional polychromy, or the use of color to accentuate the different constructional elements of a building. This was especially popular with Gothic revivalists, with those such as Jones who were interested in Islamic architecture, and those who were reevaluating the decorative language of classical Greek and Roman architecture, such as Gottfried Semper in Zurich. Thus, looking to Islamic tile designs at Alhambra in Spain, these are drawings he made for Islamic tiles, Jones stuck to primary colors to reinforce the crystalline metaphor of the Crystal Palace. In the barrel vault, for example, we see the three primary colors used in something approximating a balance, with numerous yellow decorative ribs in the spans between structural ribs, the latter having blue surfaces for the trusswork sides and red surfaces on the soffitted undersides. Likewise, Jones used red surfaces on the longitudinal supports, while the blue sky filled the glassy panes between the structural members. Consequently, the desired effect here is the refraction of natural white light into its primary colors, as happens when you shine sunlight through the prismed facets of a crystal, hence Crystal Palace. This is even clearer when we return to the view along the main hall of the Crystal Palace. Here, to help regulate the internal temperature of the venue, Paxton included white canvas sections to cover the glass roof, cooling the interior. And because of this white covering, Jones broke the color balance, primarily using blue for the structural girders that support the roof. The open metalwork combined with the blue painted surfaces and the seemingly endless procession of girders down a nearly 2,000-foot long hallway allows the trusswork to dissolve as the eye follows it down the length of the hallway, leaving a kind of blue haze, as if the blue sky were in the exhibition space after all. Thus, between the blue haze of girders and the blue sky shining through the barrel vaulted transept, the designers took full advantage of the fact that the Great Exhibition was a temporary event, set from May to September 1851, when the skies over London were at their brightest. Focusing on the dissolving effect of the mostly glass structure, this leads us to the most important floor-level detail of the interior design. At the crossing of the main hall and shortened transept, the designers placed a giant water feature, one of several in the halls. This elaborate 27-foot tall fountain, crafted by Fowlet Osler, echoed the crystal metaphor of the building, taking the name of the Crystal Fountain. But because Paxton switched from a flat-roofed transept to the barrel vault seen here, the fountain's effect for the interior design is that much stronger. The spray of water through the top of the crystal fountain echoes the rounded form of the barrel vault. And because that water emerged as a spray, it too dematerialized into an atmospheric effect, further reinforcing the atmospheric effect of the glass ceiling and primary colors on the ceiling's iron structure. Finally, beneath the exhibition space was a simple yellow plank flooring, echoing the yellow paint in the structure above. And we won't discuss any of the individual exhibitions in the Crystal Palace. Instead, I will end on an important point that John Pyle and Judith Gura made in their History of Interior Design. The overall effect of the Crystal Palace interior is one of contrast. The building itself was a light, open industrial space that anticipates the structural rationalism we will encounter with modernist architecture of the 20th century. But the collective experience of the numerous exhibits within that structure, each stuffed to the brim with objects, was still caught in a Victorian mindset. As we shall see with some of the Victorian domestic interiors of this lecture, the nouveau riche of the emerging industrial middle class did what most nouveau riche tend to do: buy a ton of stuff and cram it all together in their living spaces. Thus, the built environment appealed to the future of construction, but the exhibits appealed to the overwrought tastes of the Victorian middle-class consumers who came here to see the latest in art and industrial gadgets that they could use in their homes.